to start with this particular situation happens a lot. Two people have entered into sexual sin, and they want to know, they're in a relationship, and they want to know what's the best way to handle that. They're believers, they know that sexual sin is wrong. They would prefer to stay in the relationship, but they're just not sure where to go with the relationship now that they have crossed the boundaries and entered into sexual sin. Can the relationship still work? Should they just continue the relationship? What advice, what sanctified solution do we want to give a single adult couple that finds themselves in that situation? All too common.
Right. So the first thing is that we acknowledge that sexual sin is a sin.
Yes, they are acknowledging
You
that.
acknowledge that. So now, so how do you go from here? Number one, when we take a look at the book of John, it says, if we all say we are no sinners, we are liars, and there's no truth in us. But if we confess our sin, so the first thing is confess it, right? Confess it. Hey, this sin, you don't rationalize it. Just confess that you have sinned against God. Okay. Then the first thing is you confess it. There's no excuse. Then the next thing, admit that you have weakness in that area.
Right.
You got to admit you have weakness. There is a reason why you are drawn to sexual immorality. Maybe because of lust, maybe because of emotional issues, maybe because of mental issues, maybe because you just want to you just like to please people more than you please God.
Yeah.
So you wanna know why you're doing this. Then you gotta allow God to help you, to give you strength to overcome that. Then my personal judgment, you gotta cut off that relationship. I tell you why.
Okay.
The reason is pretty simple, because being in the presence of that person or communicating with that person can still allow you back to the situation, to where you were before. So the best thing is cut it off and allow God to cleanse you, allow God to love you back to His kingdom, and that will be my judgment, because that is very important.
Okay, so are you saying that, I mean, okay, so let me just further go here, because
Right.
I'm sure that's where our viewing audience is going. Are you saying that, let's just say it's a solid relationship, that the other parts of the relationship work well, they communicate well, they have things in common, they fell into sexual sin, but they but they still are in a pursuit
Right.
of Jesus Christ.
Right.
You let all of that other go,
Right.
or is there you let all of that other go? Because I'm
Right.
sure that's what they're saying, but everything else is so right.
Right.
Can't we fix that without?
Well,
Okay,
this is my personal.
it's your personal. And
Right.
then
I believe that if it happened before, it can happen again.
Okay.
If you are in the presence of that person, because and you are communicating with that person, there is propensity, there is possibility you're gonna be lured back
Right.
into the sexual
Which
sin.
is very true.
This is very true. Now, I don't know why, because this is very important. Because if you don't do that, you cannot stay in sexual sin and expect God to reveal your destiny.
Yeah.
You know, you can't stay there. You can't continue to do that. It's possible. It's possible you do that again. So the first thing is cut it off. Because if you are doing it, because number one, I want you to know, sexual sin will actually destroy your marriage before it begins at all.
It can do that. Yes,
It can do that.
Yes.
So
Okay, so I guess, and maybe you said it was your personal opinion. Maybe
Right.
maybe my personal opinion is going to be a little different here, Pastor, than
Okay.
yours. At the end of the day, we're both in agreement that sex outside of marriage is a sin. So we're not disagreeing on
Okay.
that. And so if you're having sex outside of marriage,
Right.
you're committing sin.
right.
I guess where I'm struggling with what you said is, two people that want to do the right thing,
Right.
can they put accountability in place? Can
Well,
they put
I'm not there
boundaries?
yet.
Can they put boundaries in place that salvage this relationship, or are you talking about immediately after it happens, cut it off, and then later revisit it with boundaries and accountability and things that would protect their purity?
That can be done, which
Okay.
I put accountability they need, but immediately when that thing happens,
I see.
there got to be a separation.
Okay.
Because
Which
the
makes sense.
feeling is still there,
Yes.
everything is still there.
Yeah.
Then you got to allow God to cleanse you.
Yes.
Okay, you
I
got
agree
to
with
go
that.
passionate for God. You got to love God more than sex right now.
Okay, right.
And then after that, and if there's some other thing that they are doing, then they got to put together a mentor. They got to be a mentorship or accountability that can monitor the relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah. So under that, they got to stay connected to God.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So then at the end of the
Right.
day, once there's some clarification, I think that we agree here.
Right.
But I think the challenge for those of you that find yourself in this situation right now is the willingness of both people
To
to
obey.
commit to what we just said.
Right.
I mean, all of you agree that yeah, we're sin, and yeah, we say, God, forgive me. And then you want to get back up and do the same thing over.
Right.
And that's where the problem is. That's why you continue to fall, is because you go back and do the same thing
Right,
over. If
right,
your
right.
heart is really toward obeying God in
Yeah.
purity, then you got to do some different things and take some drastic measures.
You know it, I know it. Once you open up that,
Yeah,
it is difficult to close back.
it is.
So that is why, I say, cut it off, cut it off. Love God more than you love that sex,
Yes.
and then see what God gonna do.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah.
you're repositioning God to be number one.
Absolutely.
And then go from there.
Right.
But to just point blank say, no, you can't never have a relationship with that person
Right.
would be unfair as well. It depends
Well,
on the price they're willing to pay to
Right.
make that relationship
Yeah,
pure.
it depends upon how they wanna pursue God.
Yeah.
Yeah, how remorse they are,
Mm-hmm.
that they sin against God. It depends upon, if there's something that they don't want to be doing repetitively,
Mm-hmm.
if they do it once, they feel bad about it, and they ask God to cleanse them, and God cleanse them, and then, we never know what can happen from it.
And so you're bringing up another point, a very good point that I think has to be considered is the frequency
Right.
of the involvement in the
Exactly.
sexual sin. If it was
Exactly.
one isolated instance,
Right.
and you stop it right there, clean it up real strong and real good, then you can probably salvage the relationship.
Absolutely.
But if you just keep falling and keep falling
Right.
and keep falling,
Right.
then
Then-
either you need to get married or you need to say this isn't working.
Right.
Yeah, because and so I do think that is another point here is that how often
often do you do
how
this?
often are you committing this sin?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So,
That gives some idea of the degree of the seriousness
Yeah,
and the
of the-
gravity of it.
yeah.
Yeah.